This is Tony Wiggins here with Locked On Jaguars. Jags fans, I get it. I understand. I know why you don't want to draft guys based on traits. I'll tell you why I've come around to understand why you get so angry at me. I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars on a Wednesday.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? It's Hump Day here on the First Coast. I am Tony Wiggins, your host of Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen as always. We are also free on all platforms, so make sure you like and subscribe and find us wherever you get your podcasts, and check us out also on YouTube. Y'all tired of the draft yet? Are you sick and tired of the draft yet? You can't be, man. This is what the NFL wanted. They wanted it year round, and that's what we give you. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about these traits and characteristics again. I'm going to look back in the draft to justify the people that don't think that the Jags need to be focusing on traits. Going to actually break that down a little bit more detailed so you guys really understand exactly where we're coming from when we talk about those things. Also, Cam Robinson signed his franchise tender. That means he cannot renegotiate his contract with the Jaguars or anybody else until the start of the next calendar year in football. He has to ride it out, and he's going to be a free agent all over again. He can't even do a long-term deal right now. And he's guaranteed, so it ain't like they're going to cut him. We'll talk about what impact they may have on the draft. I don't think it has any. I never thought it had any, but we will discuss that. We're going to look at some past drafts and find out by looking at those drafts if folks can come around and a little bit change their mind. It's been a little hot and heated with me and some people talking about these draft picks. I never at once said that I didn't think Aiden Hutchinson would be the pick. In fact, I said I thought he would a couple of months ago. I never once said I thought Aiden Hutchinson would be a bad player. I never once said that other guys did not have questions. It is simply a fact of, if you ask me if I prefer strawberries or oranges, I'll say oranges. And then you guys should not say, well, that means you hate strawberries. It's not what we do here. What we do is play a little bit of game of devil's advocate, and we go back and forth. And the reason why we do that is because a lot of times what we're going against are things that are preconceived notions and rumors and things that are based on other people's opinions. That's just not necessarily the reality of how everyone feels. So if anything, what I try to do when I talk about these things is just challenge you a little bit to not get sucked into thinking that if you've been blindfolded and somebody tells you standing in water, and then when they take the blindfolds off, it ain't water, it's milk, then you have to act like you're standing in milk. You can't act like you just, now that you know the truth, don't pretend that you're still standing in water, even though this whole time you were thinking that you was just standing in water. And the point is that sometimes the things that you hear or see, or that keep getting embedded in your mind based on rumors and innuendo and other people's opinions, just like the ones that I have. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm not trying to tell you how to think about the draft. All I'm trying to tell you is, if you're thinking about the draft based on what other people have told you, understand that those things may never have been true in the first place. So you're just really going around in circles thinking about nothing, right? So to give you ideas about what I mean when I say projection, and this is before we get into any of the other players and any of the past drafts. I'm not talking or speaking about projection as if you have a 16-year-old who's 6'1", who has a size 17 shoe, and I'm trying to project that he's going to be 6'8". That's not what I mean. And I'm talking about guys like Travon Walker, Quay Walker, anybody that played at the University of Georgia, versus anyone like Hutchinson or anyone like Thibodeau that actually did put up these huge numbers because of their individual situation and opportunity. And Thibodeau's numbers weren't huge this year, but he missed some games because he was injured. But still, he still showed up and showed out. Like so I had 7.5 sacks in like 10 games. So if the defensive coordinator for Georgia, Schumann, and I don't know if this was in response to any of the stuff about the draft, we would all agree that Georgia's defense was very good. We'd all agree that not all the people that's going to get drafted, none of them had a whole bunch of sacks. It doesn't negate the fact that they were very good because there wasn't one individual that had a lot of sacks, correct? Look, if you remember Calais Campbell, and I'll pull this up real quick for you here. Calais Campbell, when he came out of college, I'm not even going to talk about him in college as much as I'm going to talk about him as a pro. And you know him very well because he's one of the most likable players to ever play here in Jacksonville, correct? And when I say correct, I know y'all ain't going to answer me, so I'm not really talking about you guys answer me. I'm just being rhetorical here. I know how you guys feel about the mayor of Saxonville, correct? So I just said correct again. So listen, in his career, prior to him coming to Jacksonville, Calais Campbell never had more than 9 sacks. 9 in his career. He played a base end and the big end and the 3-4 defense for most of the years. He played for Ray Horton. I think he might have played for Todd Bowles for a little while too, if I'm not mistaken. But the thing is with Calais Campbell, when he came into the league, he was not known as a sack guy. And then when he got into the league, his first full-time year of really playing and starting was his second season. He had 7. His third season, he had 6. His fourth season, he had 8. Then he missed some games. He had 6.5. And then he had 9. And then he had 7. So that's nothing to shake a stick at. That's not, it's not, he had 21, 28 plus 15 is 40. He had 43.5 sacks. Yeah, 43.5. And then he ended up with 60.5 sacks in his first 10 seasons in the NFL, or his first 9 seasons in the NFL. 60.5 sacks. So that's like 6.5 sacks per season. Okay. You wouldn't necessarily call him a sack artist because of the defense he played in. They didn't ask him to do that. So when the Jaguars then go and sign Calais Campbell to a big contract and they bring him in, it was reasonable that they looked at him and looked at his athleticism and moving him from a 3-4 to a 4-3 that he played in college. It's reasonable to think that he was going to get some sacks for them because they looked at his body, they looked at his length, they looked at his athleticism, and they said, if we turn him loose, he can get sacks. First year in Jacksonville, 14.5 sacks, and he probably should have been the defensive player of the year. And that was in 2017. More sacks in that first season than any other season of his career in his 10th year. The year after that, he had 10.5 sacks. So he had 25 sacks in 2 years, which is more sacks than any of his best 3 years combined before he got here. So when the Jaguars signed the mayor of Saxonville, they projected that when he came here, they would allow him to do certain things and that he would produce at the number or the rate that they thought. That's not taking a 9-year veteran and saying he's going to get better when he gets here. That's just taking a 9-year veteran saying, when he gets here, we're going to ask him to do something different, and we project that he's going to be able to do it. You saw the video by defensive coordinator Schumann up at Georgia, and I mentioned this yesterday. He pointed out how he didn't want his guys to sell out too much to go rushing up for the pass or the sack and give the quarterback little lanes that he could escape through the middle of the defense. So he didn't call it this, but I've heard it called sort of a gap and hole. He wanted his guys to push guys and collapse them back into the quarterback through the middle so that it forced the quarterback to go one way or the other, left or right. He used this term. He said, and when the quarterback left containment because the pocket was collapsing, that's when our other guys, quote unquote, can go hunting. The guys he's talking about going hunting, the linebackers and the safety, Seen, N'Kobe Dean, Quay Walker, those guys, Tyndall, all of those guys could now go hunting because he says there's no way that when he breaks contain, he's going to get to the sideline and break an open field tackle by one of those guys. It was genius, but it required everyone to do their job. If you're Jacksonville and you're not running that kind of system, it is incumbent on you to look at a guy's athletic profile the way folks looked at the athletic profile of a Calais Campbell and determine that, yes, Calais Campbell can do this if we sign him here and it's projected. So any team that looks at any of those players from Georgia is going to determine whether or not those guys can get pressure. And then you can look at the tape also and see if they got pressure, not necessarily if they got the sack. And I say that to say this. It doesn't mean that Aiden can't do those things. It doesn't mean that Thibodeau can't do those things. But one thing you can do is you can take them when they sort of played like sort of the players that are the same. And there's tape of you looking at guys playing against Evan Neal. There's tape of guys playing with all the guys at Ohio State. And they have to now take those ideas and say, what's going to happen when he gets to the league? They're not going to look at sacks. They're not going to look at numbers. They're going to look at competition. They're going to look at those things. I'm not an SEC homer by any stretch of the imagination. Everybody knows I love FSU. But you can't deny that when you see guys in certain competition against certain people week after week, that performance can't fairly be measured against another performance until you get them on the field at the same time. And then when you get them on the field at the same time, you can make your determination. So I said all of that to say this. Not everything that you guys are evaluating is based on who had the best season last year. Because a lot of times there's a guy who wins the Heisman Trophy who's not picked early in the draft. The Heisman Trophy, they had plenty of guys. Johnny Manziel won a Heisman Trophy, and he didn't go first overall. There have been plenty of guys to win a Heisman Trophy. Mac Jones did, or the wide receiver, Smith up at Devontae Smith up in Philly. He didn't go first overall. There were two receivers taken ahead of him, and he probably had the best season of anybody. That's why he won the Heisman Trophy. So to throw out things that really don't matter in the equation, and I don't care who they pick, whoever they pick, I'm going to root for them, is really why sometimes we feel like we're not on the same page. So I'm going to look at some past drafts and tell you about some instances. I'm going to show you where the Jaguars picked guys based on traits and they made mistakes. And I'm going to show you instances where they could have picked guys based on traits and they probably could have done a lot better. We'll do all that here in just a second on a Wednesday, on Hump Day, on Locked On Jaguars. I'm going to first tell you guys about Shady Rays. These sunglasses, man, they're an independent sunglass company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for a fraction of the price. And I'm going to tell you something, ain't nothing worse than buying some $200 sunglasses and losing them in a pool or losing them at the beach or leaving them on an airplane. It just gets on your nerves. So that means polarized lenses in these Shady Rays, well-constructed durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Also, something you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' insane protection program. And this is the part you need to pay attention to. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every pair. They will send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. Give them a try, and if you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. It is as simple as that. Plus, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays exclusively for our customers. Head to shadyrays.com. That's SHADYRAYS.com and use the promo code Locked On to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code Locked On for their best deal of the season. 50% off for 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses, backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews. You guys are 5 stars with me because you join me every day here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day and you make us your first listen. All right, man, so I'm going to go through a few of these drafts real quick, And one of them I'll get to. We're going to start in 2020 instead of last year because we have more information. Andrew Thomas was the fourth pick on the offensive line for the Giants. Was a consensus pretty much amongst a lot of the draft people. And I think if you could redo that right now, Tristan Wirfs will probably go number one. And Tristan Wirfs went 13. So are the Giants upset that Wirfs is probably better than Thomas? No, because Thomas is at least all right. I tell you what, the Jets might be upset. And this is my guy, Mekhi Becton, went 11th, and he's had some issues. Not when he was on the field playing, but he's had some issues with his attitude a little bit. So those fans are probably a little bit off. Now, here are two picks that went with traits, and I know you guys are all too familiar with this. C.J. Henderson was an athletic freak, and Kayvon Chason was also. Kayvon's about to be drafted over, we think, right? And he's going to probably have to fight to make the team. C.J. Henderson's already gone, and all they got was a third-round pick and a backup tight end. So traits didn't go so well for Jacksonville, and this is where I told you I was going to be transparent, and I go, I get it. I totally dig, and I totally understand why you guys feel that way, right? Let me show you where it bit a team in the butt. Okay, so Joe Burrow with number one. I like Chase Young. The Washington football team or the Commanders are still looking for a quarterback right now, where they just signed Carson Wentz. Do you think that they want Joe Burrow? Justin Herbert, who went 6th? The bottom line is with Herbert, though, is they said he was big, strong with all the tools, but the problem is he was inaccurate in big games. Yeah. See, so the big, strong stuff and the traits, you can't, if you ask 5 people to name the 5 physically most gifted quarterbacks in the league, he's one of them. That's where traits hurt you, because in the NFL, having that big, strong arm and accuracy isn't the problem, because you're playing with elite athletes and you're playing in a better scheme, right? You would think. So that was one situation where that was a little bit of an issue. I'll tell you where another little bit of an issue was with some of these picks. And a lot of the really good ones are in 2021. The Raiders, they went for traits. They went for toughness. Now, I'm not going to comment on Henry Ruggs because I don't want to. That's a real serious situation where someone lost their life. So I'm not going to play with that. But they went for toughness. They specifically went for toughness, and they went and got Damon Arnett. Damon Arnett might be in jail somewhere right now. Damon Arnett is, I said might, but he's been in constant trouble, and he wasn't playing that well. They decided that they were going to take this mantra that they would go and get guys who would win bar fights as opposed to guys who were real good football players. So now you see where those certain traits that aren't necessarily physical, it kind of hurt you a little bit, right? Justin Jefferson was thought to be too light, and he lasted until the 22nd pick. The Eagles chose 21st and took Jalen Reagor because they were looking for speed. And they probably figured, like, check this out. Now, listen, I want y'all to pay attention. Probably figured, like, well, Justin Jefferson ain't that good. He was just on the team that had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was on a team that was loaded. Does that sound familiar? He was on a loaded team, so he must not be good. His numbers, we'll see what happens when he doesn't have all those great teammates around him. You know what happened? The same thing that happened in college, and probably more so, because now the dude has set a record for 2 years, the first 2 years of a career, by a wide receiver. Don't get caught up and worried about a dude's teammates and thinking that he ain't going to put numbers up because of his teammates being good. It turns out that that was one of the best offenses in history, just like Georgia's defense is one of the best in history. So some of these arguments that we use, they can get a little bit out of pocket. We're going to go to 2021 because there are some doozies in there. Now, I know 2021 is a little bit early because we ain't going to look at the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks sort of have to take their time. The quarterback, you have to take your time with a quarterback. Would the Falcons choose Kyle Pitts, even though he had a good year, over Jamar Chase? Would they? I don't know. I'm just asking a question. Would they choose him over Michael Parsons? As good as Jalen Waddle was, would the Dolphins choose him over Michael Parsons? Michael Parsons had 6.5 sacks. 6.5 sacks. his last year at Penn State, and then he didn't play in 2020 due to COVID. And the dude is a monster. So that's where the whole trait argument that people make against me, that's where it goes a little bit in the other direction. I'm telling you, man, there are just some people on this list, like Christian Darrisaw probably should have went way higher last year. And see, the point that I really want to make about why this is important to get this pick right if you're Jacksonville is because you've had too many times where, well, what happened in 2020 might be a disaster, right? It hasn't been that bad, but the Jaguars have picked in the top 5 or the top 10 more than anybody in history in successive years. And the fact that they're sitting there picking number one, I understand from my point, I'm trying to just make sure they get the pick right and they just don't pick somebody just for reasons other than football or reasons other than stats from the previous year. And the fans that get upset with me, and I understand it, it's because they want to get it right too, because it's been so wrong in the past. And a lot of times, some of the same reasons that you hear for them making choices are same ones that you're hearing right now. I guess we all kind of got that little bit of a hangover from how bad it's been with Jacksonville here in the past. So hopefully they can right the ship. We'll see if they righted the ship by keeping Cam Robinson. I thought it was a real good time to fix the offensive line this year. We wouldn't even be talking about an edge rusher. But we'll discuss all of that in just a second here on segment 3 of Locked On Jaguars. The talking points about Built Bar are incredible. You know why? Because Built Bars are incredible. I've been telling you about the macros, the taste, the packaging, the texture, how it doesn't melt in your hands, all of these things that we can talk about that'll get you to go out and get some Built Bars, right? But the bottom line is, and the constant in all of this is they're just flat out delicious and they taste great. And I got a pantry full of them, man, because I just can't stop eating Built Bars on a daily basis. Low calories, high proteins. You can replace those candy bars and that aren't good for you, and the nasty protein bars. Let's just face it, there's some of them out there that aren't any good, and then they have bad texture. They want you to pretend you're eating a candy bar while you're eating something that tastes like cardboard. 100% chocolate and Built Bar, you don't have that issue. And the Built and the Puffs, oh my God, the Built Puffs are so delicious because they're infused with they're protein infused, but they're marshmallowy and they're soft, and it's like a pastry. Whereas the Built Bars is like a candy bar. Try them for yourself. I want you to tell me what your favorite flavor are, and you can get them by going to built.com and scrolling down and checking out the macros to make sure that I'm dead honest about what I'm telling you, which I am. And then you can use the promo code LOCK15 and you'll get 15% off your next order of Built Bars. I'm telling you, it's 100% real chocolate, low calorie, low carb, low sugar, and packed with protein. Make sure you use the promo code LOCK15 and get you some Built Bars at built.com. All right, man, we're going along here on a Wednesday talking about all things Jaguars and me kind of being apologetic and me coming around a little bit and understanding why fans get so upset about just not taking the person that they think is the best player. I don't think they can go wrong. I just want them to go as right as they could possibly go and to not use cliches and innuendos as reasons to not make the correct pick. That's all. I will tell you, I sort of thought that they made a little bit of a mistake um, by not addressing the offensive line and addressing the tackle positions. So there's a difference in the way that they feel about Cam Robinson and the way I feel about Cam Robinson. It's obvious. There's a difference in the way that they feel about Jawan Taylor and the way I feel about Jawan Taylor. And that's cool. But they have to live with their decision because those are the people that have to coach. And I'm just going to talk about what they do. If they win, I'm going to talk about them in a good way. If they don't, I'm going to talk about them and I'm going to tell you that they should be doing something better. So I support and I understand the decisions and the choices that they've made. They believe that tweaking it and a coaching change is going to help this offense and this offensive line. Mind you, the last head coach was an offensive, the last head coach. I ain't talking about Urban. We're talking about before him. The last head coach was an offensive line guru. So when he had a head coach, there was actually two of them, and they couldn't necessarily get this unit to be anything more than pretty good, just solid. And they were a good run blocking team. I'll give them that. But it just seems like they could never take over games. So Even the new staff come in with a new well, not really a new GM, but a GM who's been around for a couple of years, a new staff, and you know what? They are convinced that this line is okay. And if they like it, I love it. They're not taking a left tackle. Economically, it wouldn't make sense for them to do that at this point, unless they're going to take a left tackle and play him at left guard for a year. Um, I always thought that Evan Neal was the best player in the draft, but I will tell you this. I will tell you that even though I thought he was the best player in the draft, I never thought it was out of the question that they would take an edge rusher, right? So I know it's either one or those two things. It's either an edge rusher or uh, Evan Neal. So at this point, I'm not really upset. I'm not really upset that it appears that they're going to take uh, an edge rusher. So for me, I'm not one of those people that pretends to be disappointed that they're going to take an edge rusher over um, an offensive lineman. I'm not upset about it at all. I just want to make sure they get the pick right. The issue that I may have is when folks think that you can't have a rookie left tackle because you got to protect your quarterback. At some point, all of those left tackles are rookies, right? Every left tackle, right tackle, every tackle that came into this league at some point is they were a rookie. Tristan Wirfs was a rookie and he was protecting Tom Brady, even though he was protecting Tom Brady's not non-weak side. He was a rookie when he was doing that. At some point, you got to be able to trust people. And I think having a very, very talented rookie is better or just as good as having a mediocre veteran. You get my point? I don't think Cam's contract situation had any bearing whatsoever, or the fact that they tagged him, with the fact that he hadn't signed. I don't think it had any bearing on what they were going to do. Because I think when you have the number one pick, you have to actually take the best player in the draft as opposed to cherry picking and worrying about positions. I've been saying that for months. So for me, you just take the absolute best player in the draft and then you figure everything out later. And I hope when the Jaguars do make their pick, I hope that when they decide who they're going to take, that they take the guy that they believe is the best for this franchise. And that doesn't mean that he's going to have the best start, but that he's just going to be the best player, the best fit. He's going to have the best career. Don't worry about winning the press conference on draft night. Don't worry about what I'm going to say or what fans are going to say. You ain't never won a game based on what anybody who's doing a podcast says, and you've never won a game based on anything that fans say. There's somebody that's been trying to come in my office while I got distracted. I don't know if y'all could tell. I'm not going to edit this out, though, because this is like real live radio. And I'm going to tell you something. They see I'm in here doing a podcast, right? They see me doing a podcast, and they're going to look at this podcast. They see me doing a podcast. So they can't get in the door because the door's locked, right? So this is me just sharing behind the scenes. So they called me on the phone, and I know what they want. They left a bottle of water in here about an hour ago. So they just want to interrupt me to come in here and get a bottle of water and distract me to the point where I know y'all probably saw me flex and tell them to get away from my door. Just a little bit of behind the scenes to let you know what goes on every single day that I record. I swear to God, too, man. Let me tell you what I try to do. I try to record when I'm not going to get distracted by anybody, right? I really do every single time. Without fail. I don't care. It could be my dog. One day it was the maintenance man. One day when I first started doing this, it was the police because some fool was walking around threatening people with weapons in my building. So I start recording and then I get the police come knocking on. I'm telling you, man, I have had so many distractions. Me and James Rapine were filming Locked on NFL, and the police, the whole SWAT team was at the door looking for this fool who's walking around with an axe. I'm telling you, I'm sharing this stuff with you because I'm trying to be human, and I'm not going to edit this video. So that's why y'all saw me distracted and saw me trying to get my train of thought, because I was ticked off that somebody is going to interrupt me in what I'm doing over a bottle of water. So y'all think y'all bother me going back and forth with me on Twitter? You do not. The everyday life of Tony Wiggins is something else. All right. You guys are something else too. Make sure you check out the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. It's very important that you do that because you won't be disturbed and disrupted by people trying to break down your door for some water. You'll get my man Eric Crocker and my man Ryan Tracy. They're going to break down analytics and football stuff for you and break these prospects down and show you exactly who these teams believe that they take, no matter who the Jaguars take. We're all going to be happy. We're all going to pull back, just like I tell people all the time about Jaguars fans being angry at the team. The second the team does anything that they like, they'll be right back, and that's the way they should be. The same thing's going to be about us. I am from Duval, so it ain't just like I just do this. I'm from here. I want this stuff to work. So regardless of who they pick, I'm not going to sit there and pass gas at somebody's wedding. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to enjoy it just like everybody else, and I'm going to look for the best side of everything, and no matter what happens. So let's get ready to enjoy these last couple of weeks of draft coverage together, and then we'll get ready for draft night. We had a good draft show coming up on Locked On Podcast, Ultimate Mock Draft. We did it already. I already made my choice, and I explained it, and you guys will see. And you'll see if I'm right about who they're going to take, not who I would take, but who they're going to take. So until tomorrow, you guys take care and make sure you take care of each other. And we'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.